Sweetheart, you can't go out in the cold like this. Here, this coat will keep you warm. It's got butterflies on it, see? Just like the ones you drew in class today. 24-year-old Lennox Hart knelt in the schoolyard, gently helping 4-year-old Briar into a thick winter coat she'd just purchased from the thrift store 3 blocks away. It was the last $20 in Lennox's wallet, money she'd been saving for her own overdue electric bill, but watching this tiny girl shiver in nothing but a threadbare sweater for the 3rd day in a row had broken something inside her. Briar's eyes widened with wonder as she touched the soft fabric, her small fingers tracing the embroidered butterflies. "It's so pretty, Miss Lennox, but I can't. Daddy says we don't take charity." "It's not charity, honey," Lennox said softly, zipping the coat and smoothing Briar's tangled hair. "It's what people do when they care about each other. When someone's cold, you help them get warm. That's just being human." What Lennox didn't know was that across the street, standing behind a lamppost in an expensive suit that cost more than her monthly rent, 33-year-old Sterling Whitfield had been watching the entire exchange. He'd come to pick up his daughter, late again, as always, and had frozen when he saw the young teacher kneel in the dirty snow, witnessed her gentle care, heard her soft words carrying across the quiet afternoon. Sterling's hands clenched at his sides, shame and something deeper twisting in his chest. He'd been avoiding Briar since her mother died giving birth to her 4 years ago. Every time he looked at his daughter, he saw the woman he'd lost, felt the crushing weight of grief he couldn't process, couldn't escape. So he'd buried himself in work, delegated Briar's care to nannies who came and went, provided money but withheld presence. He hadn't even noticed his daughter didn't have a proper winter coat. That night, Sterling couldn't sleep. He kept seeing that teacher, barely more than a girl herself, clearly struggling financially based on her worn clothes and practical shoes, spending her last money on a child who wasn't hers. And he, with millions in the bank, hadn't noticed his own daughter shivering. The next day, Sterling did something unprecedented. He showed up at Riverside Elementary during parent-teacher conferences, an event he'd never attended before, always sending his assistant with vague apologies. When Lennox saw him walk into her classroom, her breath caught. She recognized him immediately from the school files. Sterling Whitfield, tech entrepreneur, always unreachable, never involved. "Mr. Whitfield," Lennox said carefully, professional despite her pounding heart. "I'm glad you could make it. Briar's been doing wonderfully in class. She's incredibly bright and creative." "I saw you," Sterling interrupted quietly, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't quite hide. "Yesterday, buying her the coat, with what I'm guessing was money you needed for yourself." Lennox's face flushed. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. I didn't mean to imply you weren't providing." "Don't apologize," Sterling said, and the pain in his eyes was so raw that Lennox's defensive posture softened. "You did what I should have done, what I should have noticed needed doing. I've failed her in ways I'm only beginning to understand." Over the next hour, something unexpected happened. Sterling began talking, really talking, about his wife's death, about the grief that had calcified into emotional paralysis, about how he'd been running from his own daughter because loving her meant facing the loss of her mother. And Lennox listened with the same gentle attention she gave her students, seeing past his wealth and coldness to the broken, terrified man beneath. "Briar talks about you constantly," Lennox said softly. "Every day she tells me something new. 'Miss Lennox, guess what my daddy does?' Or, 'Miss Lennox, when my daddy comes home, we're going to—' She loves you desperately, Mr. Whitfield. She's just waiting for you to love her back." Sterling's composure cracked completely. "I don't know how. I look at her and I see everything I lost. How do I get past that?" "By seeing everything you still have," Lennox replied gently. "Briar isn't a reminder of loss. She's proof that love continues, that something beautiful survived tragedy. But you have to choose to see it."
What began that day was a slow, painful transformation. Sterling started small, picking Briar up from school himself, having dinner with her instead of working through it, reading bedtime stories in a halting voice that gradually grew stronger. And Lennox became an unexpected anchor, offering guidance born not from judgment, but from genuine care for both father and daughter. Weeks passed, and Sterling learned that Lennox was supporting her chronically ill mother on a teacher's salary that barely covered rent. She worked second jobs on weekends, spent her own money on classroom supplies, and still somehow found energy to pour love into her students. Her kindness wasn't performative, it was simply who she was, bone deep and unshakable. One evening, Sterling showed up at Lennox's modest apartment with an envelope. Inside was a check that made her gasp. "This is too much. I can't accept this." "It's not payment," Sterling said firmly. "It's gratitude. You gave Briar something I couldn't, consistent love and attention. You spent your last $20 on a coat when I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes and didn't notice she needed one. Let me do this. Please." But Lennox surprised him. She refused the personal gift, but accepted a donation to her classroom and a proposal that Sterling fund a program providing winter clothes and supplies to all students in need at Riverside, not just her daughter, but every child. "Make it about more than us," Lennox said softly. "Make it about changing the system that creates these gaps. That's how kindness multiplies."
Sterling not only funded the program but began volunteering, showing up to help distribute coats, meeting families, understanding the struggles he'd been insulated from. And through it all, his relationship with Briar deepened. She no longer flinched when he entered a room, no longer looked at him with careful hope that expected disappointment. She ran to him, laughed with him, trusted him. 6 months after that first parent-teacher conference, Sterling and Lennox stood in the schoolyard watching Briar play in the snow, warm and joyful in her butterfly coat that still fit perfectly. "She's thriving," Lennox said softly. "You've done remarkable work, Mr. Whitfield." "Sterling," he corrected gently. "And no, you did the remarkable work. You saw a child who needed love and gave it freely, even though it cost you. You taught me that wealth without compassion is just expensive emptiness, that being present matters more than any amount of money." Lennox smiled, watching Briar make snow angels. "You know what I've learned? That sometimes the people who seem most unreachable are just the most hurt, and that choosing to see their humanity instead of their failings can change everything. Because kindness is rarely convenient. It costs us time, money, emotional energy we're not sure we have to spare. But true compassion doesn't wait for perfect circumstances or easy recipients. It sees need and responds, trusts that small acts of care can crack open closed hearts, believes that love given freely returns in unexpected ways. A $20 coat becomes a bridge between strangers, a catalyst for healing, proof that choosing humanity over convenience can transform not just one life, but many, rippling outward in circles we may never fully see, but always deeply feel. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.